super excited to share our first double purpose story with you today. So today I am very honored to welcome Dina and Lizzie to share their joint purpose story. And like the rest, I am hearing these stories for the first time with you and would first like to just welcome both of you. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And the first question I have for you is where are you from? So Lizzie, if you want to go first.
Sure. I live in Southern California. I'm mostly from California. I've lived in 8 other states along the way, and yeah, now residing in Southern.
Awesome. And Dina, where are you from?
I live closer to Central California.
Awesome.
From Arizona originally, but yeah.
Awesome. Just fun to see where people are and where they're from. So, okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Let's jump in and go back to those moments, those aha moments that you first may have not realized in the moment, but looking back, you could see those were the series of moments that have led you to today, to your purpose. And so excited to hear this story from both of you. You all have the floor. Let's hear it.
Okay, well, I'll start. So I was wife number 1 of a very toxic, sexually addicted narcissist, and I was married to him for 26 years. And after 26 years of so much, it's hard to even talk about, I couldn't do it anymore. And we had 4 children, and they were grown by this time. And so I finally said, enough's enough. And so he immediately met and married Lizzie as quickly as he could, because he knew that once she figured out who he was, it would be all over. And he married Lizzie, and it's a crazy story as well with Lizzie. That whole thing spirals off, and it's on our podcast on the Matadoras. But after he married Lizzie, and Lizzie, do you want to jump in at that point?
Yeah, no, we were together for 6 years, and I moved across the country with him for his job. And after we almost hit the 6-year mark, and all of a sudden things got very weird. Like he would disappear. I was locked out of my phone account. I was locked out of some of our financial situations. I mean, and here I was living in a state that, we planned to retire in and whatever. I left my career, my life behind, and I had 4 children, and my children ended up being dropped all over the US. So we were separated for, some time. And as things got weird and I tried to approach it, it kept getting weirder and weirder. And finally, one day, I felt very vulnerable. I felt very isolated, very alone, very humiliated, because I was like, how could I be in this situation again? I was extremely broke and not realizing he wasn't paying any of my credit cards because he was handling the finances. So I left one weekend when he said he went on a retreat, a men's retreat, and he would not be back until late Sunday. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I got a place with my sister. My sister helped me get into a place. She didn't live there. And as time unraveled, I called Dina's oldest son and I said, I separated with your dad, but he's kind of making some very, I would say some suicidal ideation comments that I felt like he needed to be aware of, because I didn't know any backstory of anything, even though I got to know some of Dina's children and everything else since, well, her ex and I were married. But yeah, he was like, is it okay if I reach out to my mom and share this with her, because she's lived with it for 26 years and she knows his toxic behaviors? And the next thing I know, I'm like, yeah, sure. Not sure where our conversation would lead. She literally texted me with minutes, because that had to have been a hard thing for any ex to do, to reach out like that. And she said, you know what? You are not alone. This is not, something I'm shocked or surprised over. And I'm very surprised. And then we scheduled a time to talk on the phone. I think she and I were on the phone for like 3 hours the very first time. We connected in such a way that it was unbelievable how a friendship was bonded from that moment. That, it was kind of an eye-opener that sometimes beautiful things, I mean, not sometimes, but usually there's something beautiful that does come out of our tragedies. Sometimes it takes a little time for us to see it budding and growing. But then soon after that, as I was filing for divorce, even though he was begging me not to leave him and everything else, after the divorce was final, I found out he was leading a double life. I found some stuff that was very evident who this person was. And then her messages or her notes were pretty much sharing the fact that she had no idea I existed. You know, you can kind of tell a person's inner workings sometimes in the words that they write. And so when I started reaching out to Dina, we ended up on this huge like drive, especially me, because I was still living in that same state, that we had to find this person. And it literally wasn't until later when Dina sent a message through Facebook. I don't know, Dina, if you want to take that part.
Yeah, so we, excuse me, we'd been trying to find her for months, and we found her Facebook, but we weren't friends and we didn't have any way to message her. And so finally, I just, months later, I just left a message. And this is months after we started looking for her. So it's quite a few months after Lizzie had left and, was the divorce was happening and all of that. So, I finally just leave her a Facebook message and I said, listen, I just want you to know when you find this message, Lizzie and I found your Facebook, and Lizzie has read the cards and notes and seen the pictures that you sent to Ray. We know, sorry, Rex, we know that this was not you. Like, we know that you are not someone who was a cheater. We can just tell. You probably had no idea he was married. And so we just want to make sure that you understand that if you find this and you're still with him and you really want to reach out to somebody, please, we're here for you. We will, no judgment. We will understand. We know how good he is in manipulation and pretending to be somebody else. He's very charismatic. Please, we're here if you need it. Well, months went by. I heard nothing. And all of a sudden I get a call, and she called, and she had this panic in her voice. And she was like, what's going on? And I said, do you know who I am? And she said, yes. And I said, are you still with Rex? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, listen, Lizzie and I just wanted you to know not to feel bad. Like, we understand. I am positive you had no idea he was married, because, I mean, it looks like she was with him for close to a year, while he was still married to Lizzie. And she just, there's just this moment of silence. And she said, who is Lizzie? And I was like, what? And she said, what's going on? I know about you. I know you were married to him like 7 years ago. I know you guys have 4 kids. I know the story. She's like, who's Lizzie? And I said, well, Lizzie is the wife that he just divorced, or they just divorced. And she was like, what? And so now she's in this panic. She's like, where does she live? I'm like, well, she lives in the same state you do, not that far away. And, you don't know about her? And she said, no, I had no idea. So then, of course, now she's in full on panic mode, where she's asking all kinds of questions about, that house that he would always drive me by, where he lived, where he was taking care of the little old man and the little old lady. She's like, that was Lizzie, like, that was his wife? And I said, he was not taking care of a little man and lady. She's like, he told me he never took me in the house because the little man and lady, and he didn't want to disturb them. And, she's like, and then he never spent the night at my house because he said, we're Christians and I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't stay the night at your house with your children and make you look bad. And then she says, do you mean this red coat that I'm wearing right now that he gave me from the little old lady it might be his ex-wife's? And I said, yeah.
Yeah, it was my coat. And at that point, we were so thankful, because she could have just said, y'all are crazy. There's probably a reason why you're not with them, because of you. But she took everything we said and she ran with it. And literally, he was on a trip. And so she found out on a Saturday. Sunday, she met with her lawyer. And Monday, when he came home, she had a restraining order and an annulment for fraud, I believe it was. with a line of police on her driveway. So pretty much she told him to go. Or well, she didn't, the police did, because they were like, no, we don't know who this person is. We don't know, he's had some other things that kind of are questionable and red flag. So after that, soon after that, he moved to be closer to his family. And that's where the story even continues to that point of we found out literally within 3 weeks, he was already with somebody else. And so it's like, this whole time, I think Dina and I looked at each other and were like, this is sickening behavior. This is a pattern that a lot of narcissists or sociopaths or whatever, I mean, you don't have to have a name for it, no matter what, is toxic behavior. So we felt like our story, our mission is to help educate other people so they do not, that's the purpose of our podcast, educate other people so they do not stay in the same place, or, that they kind of learn. Also, so that people that are dating, they don't date that same type of person because they're learning to be educated. We also want to be a voice to those who can hear us on the podcast or anywhere else, because that's why people spreading the word is important, because a lot of times when people are in these abusive relationships, they don't know these services are around because they're so isolated. So we also want to be the voice for the voiceless. I lost a friend from domestic violence, so I know we can lose 4 people a day because of domestic violence from a domestic partner. So our desire is to help close that gap through education, encouragement, no one feeling alone, but we also love to walk beside the person that is healing after these types of relationships to know that there is something beautiful on the other side. We don't want to see them stuck in anger. We don't want to see them stuck in their grief. We want to see them move past those feelings, but those feelings I think are very normal. It's just we don't want you to stay stuck there. So that is how the Matadoras was formed.
Wow, what an amazing and twisting and just suspenseful story. And, for all of those who have been in a relationship and didn't follow the path, that's the path is basically like a storm. It just goes and keeps on going, and until, what you all are doing is attempting to get people out of the path, to before they get sucked into it, or if they're in the path, to get support to get out. And that is so important. Like you said, Lizzie, you had your sister, and just then having each other and then giving the support. um it's incredible. I'm really very much inspired by this story, because I also have had that experience myself, and so it hits home to me, and to so many women who have gone through it. And what I've noticed, and for what I've learned, is that there's the good qualities that are what attract these type of toxic relationships. And so I can easily see how 2 amazing women can find each other, and like you all are connected now with this purpose, because those are the good qualities that attracted him in the first place. So yeah, what would be some advice on, for those who are, because there's so many layers of manipulation and isolation, like what are the first steps that they can take to start getting aware and getting out?
Well, I think like Lizzie said, you need somebody. You need somebody that, is healthy, because be careful of people that are too close to, your partner. Because the narcissist and anybody that's toxic is so good. They're so good at getting into your mind and convincing you that there's somebody else. And they will literally use all the people in your life to get you back. They will weep and cry. They will twist stories. They will lie about what really happened. And they will, feed off of the emotions of the people that have been in your life for a while. So get somebody like Lizzie, it was her sister. Get somebody in your corner that is really in your corner, but also is a very healthy person that can see these toxic behaviors and that can really help keep your brain where it is, because it's like being in a cult. You get so sucked in and you literally lose focus on what's real, what's not, and what I'm seeing real, or is what I'm feeling real. that cognitive dissonance where, you feel something in your soul and it just feels off and it's wrong. But your brain is telling you, because he's telling you or she's telling you, that you're crazy. So that's really, I think that's the most important thing.
And
Yes.
also to piggyback on that real quick would be people do not realize if you're not in these situations, a lot of times they think, well, this doesn't pertain to me. But I feel differently. I think that it's really important for everyone to be educated about these types of abuses, because I guarantee everyone's going to have at least one person they know that is going to be walking through this, and their knowledge and places to connect or places to help the victim connect is so critical, because a lot of times those victims, like I said, they're isolated. You have some victims, all their technology is monitored. So those people in their life is like key number one.
Absolutely. And like you said, educating, I have two little daughters, and I am definitely going to have them learn all the red flags to look out for,
Yeah.
because those great seemingly qualities in the beginning that, turn around after the table turns is just, it's really hard to navigate if you have no idea what to look for and what to be aware of. And so, just getting that education, like what you all are doing, having a podcast, just bringing attention to this is so amazing. So, yeah, is there any other vision for how you want to grow this community, or for like aligning your purpose? Like, what does that look like today? You have the Matadoras, and what else does your purpose look like today?
Well, we are going to start some community support groups, and lower cost. It won't be super expensive, so that because a lot of women that are going through these situations, money is an issue, especially if they're having to leave or they've already left. So reasonably priced classes where women can come together, and there'll be a theme. It'll be on Zoom, and every week they can feel like they're looking in a mirror with all kinds of other women that have already been through this. And that's so helpful, because you do feel like it's just you, and you did something stupid, or there's so much in there, and so it's really helpful. um, and then also we want to create some digital content for education, like you were talking about with your daughters, where you can just purchase a digital uh, either a webinar or just educational material, and then have that and be able to learn and grow and get some great insight from that.
Yeah. Pretty much
Awesome.
reinventing yourself is what we want each person to do, so that if a person had quit dreaming, it's pretty much our goal with these sessions is to also help them dream again as they process through moving forward.
That is so beautiful. Well, I want to celebrate both of you in finding each other and finding your purpose, and to now, the vision of building an amazing community, and, bringing like-minded women together. Like you said, they can see themselves, and it's so amazing when you literally hear the details that you went through mirrored in front of you by other women. There's no other close connection that you can have from that. So that's really beautiful. Just want to celebrate both of you in your purpose and in your journey. And, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing. And how can people reach out to you?
Well, we have
What's
the
your
matadoras.com, which is our website. Our podcast is on all the podcast platforms, so just look for the Matadoras. And we are on Instagram and TikTok now at the Matadoras. What else? Am I missing anything? Oh, we have a
Yep.
public Facebook group as well, and a private Facebook group. So the private one, so that people feel more safe. And again, the Matadoras. The public Facebook group is Women of Faith Escaping Toxic Relationships, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
Women of Faith. Yeah, Escaping Toxic Relationships. And we're there publicly, and that's, we just put all of our reels and links and some quotes, and it's just sort of a way to just let people come and peruse if they want to. And then the private Facebook page is more for women that just, if they want to make a comment or reach out, they can. So we're growing all these things. We've only been going since the first of the year. And already we're getting some momentum, which is wonderful because it's just in our hearts to, we don't ever want anybody to hurt like we did. If we can prevent it, if we can't prevent it, we don't ever want anybody to feel so confused and desperate and alone. We don't want anybody to feel that way. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what last advice or tips or words of encouragement can you give to women who are seeking, help and in that isolation?
I think one quick tip when they're feeling isolated is to go ahead and start journaling, because sometimes that puts your thoughts down on paper. I know sometimes it's really hard, again, if you're in a very difficult place. And then just finding those key people, that even if it's one person, because you may need to get yourself ready for an exit plan. Like if you're miserable and it's been a while, most likely you're needing to prepare that safe exit plan. Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. Any last words, Dina?
no, I'm just so happy to be here. And, for all of you listening, we just want you to know that we really understand and we care about you. And it's a very tough place to be. And a lot of times they say that people may not even know that they're in an abusive relationship, especially when it's covert, psychological, mental, emotional. Sometimes they don't even know that they're in an abusive relationship for decades. And I was married to Rex for 26 years, and I literally didn't know that there was any kind of abuse going on. I just knew that I was miserable. I knew that everything was always out of control. Everything was chaos. The finances were a disaster. His emotions and moods were a disaster. He treated the kids terrible. He was so mean. I just knew that, but the confusing part is there's periods, sometimes even like a year, where you're happy, where they did something horrible, you leave, and they get it all together, right? And then they just become Prince Charming and everything you wanted, and they're really, going to therapy or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's the part that makes it difficult, is when you have those golden moments that give you all this hope, or you go to a therapist or you go to a pastor, somebody you respect, and they're like, listen, you guys have all kinds of hope. This guy's a good guy. Don't give up on this. This is your family. So there's so much conflicting emotion out there. And we're very excited to not have to be the people that we were when we went through these things, when we were in the midst of it and suffering. I don't ever want a woman to go 26 years and not really understand what she's going through.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. It's been an amazing and eye-opening experience, and just want to really honor and thank you both for coming on today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Rose. Thanks for
Thank you.
doing this.
Yeah.